Hello and welcome to the Rank and Report football show from Richmond, Virginia to London, England. I'm your host, Adam Booker, and I'm joined, as I always am, by Mr. Charlie Gordon. How you doing, Charlie?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, mate. Not too bad. It's about 9 p.m. in the evening here, but I'm feeling energized to talk about some European football. How are you doing?
I'm good, yeah. I'm actually, for the first time in a long time, looking forward to an international break. I feel like there's so many games now because of the compressed season that you just never have a moment to breathe and digest the season as it's coming at us. So I'm actually looking forward to 2 weeks of basically meaningless football.
Yeah, it's going to be a nice little rest, but I think it's England v Ireland on Thursday, which is being branded as a friendly, but obviously it's going to be a little bit feisty, that one. And I live with an
Yeah.
Irishman here, a very passionate, proud Irishman. So there's going to be fireworks in the household on Thursday. So that's one to look out for.
Yeah, that should be fun. We've finally gonna get we're finally gonna get to see our European studs play for the American national team for the first time. We've got
Is that what they're
Wales.
known as? Is that what they're known
No,
as in the
well,
US?
in my household, yeah.
Right, yeah,
Um,
cool.
but yeah, we've got Wales in a friendly on Thursday, so we're finally gonna get to see, like Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie, all these guys finally play together. We think they're all gonna play together. So basically everyone in the US thinks we're going to win 2022 World Cup just because we have a couple kids playing in the Champions League, but
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see. Um, all right, before we get into the rankings, as I always do, I just want to encourage everybody to hit that subscribe button down below and hit the notification bell to be notified when we release a new video. And if you're somebody that prefers the audio version of our show, you can search us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, search the Rank and Report Football Show, and we will be the first search result. And give us a follow, a subscription, a rating, a review, whatever you want to do on there. And that's the best way to get the pod out there and get the show out there is just rating, reviewing, leaving comments, all that kind of stuff. So we're, I believe, 3 subscribers away from 100 here on YouTube. And when we hit that 100, we're doing an Away Days mystery kit giveaway, which is going to be a lot of fun. They've got some really cool kits on there. But yeah, now that we got that all out of the way, why don't we get into the rankings? Charlie, how you feeling about your rankings?
I'm feeling good. I'm just happy week to week. I keep managing to get some new teams put in there. So maybe at some point we'll show some consistency in recognizing the best teams in Europe. But I think we're still finding our feet at the minute. But I'm just happy we got some new teams to talk about. It's going to be an interesting episode.
I mean, since it's, based on form as well, it's a season where the big boys are losing every other week and you've got some less recognized teams sitting top of the table in some leagues. So it's not your normal City and Liverpool at the top in England, Bayern Munich at the top in Germany, Barcelona and Real Madrid in Spain. It's not the kind of status quo of people that are on big win streaks and stuff like that. So it's definitely made it more difficult but more interesting. So
Yeah.
all right, I'm going to go first this week and give my 10 through 6. Let's see here. In at number 10, I have got Chelsea, who are in my top 10 for the first time this season. Their recent results, they had a 4-1 win against Sheffield United, a 3-0 win against Rennes, 3-0 win against Burnley, and a 4-0 win against Krasnodar. For the second week in a row, my 10th place spot is kind of a hopeful spot, a team that I think could make a run into my top 5 if they catch some form, and they're starting to catch some form. So I've got them just barely scraping in at number 10. But I'm looking for Chelsea to go on a bit of a run later down the season. So I think the massive amount of money they spent this summer, it was going to take a little bit of time for those signings to gel, but it seems like it might be starting to gel a little bit. So if that keeps up, then they could go on a good run. In at number 9, another team that is making my rankings for the first time this year is Villarreal, who are sitting in second, I believe, in La Liga. They have very quietly put together a really good squad. Standout players probably Gerard Moreno, who is now getting pretty consistent Spain call ups, and he's joined by the likes of kind of some old heads that kind of a lot of players where you're like, oh, that's where they are now. He's
Yeah,
got
totally. Yeah, oh, I
yeah,
completely agree. Yeah,
yeah,
sorry. Yeah, looking through Villarreal's, past few games and stuff. Yeah, like Carlos Bacca is one in particular. I was like, oh, there he is. Didn't know you were there, sunshine. But yeah, sorry. Carry on.
yeah. Carlos Bacca is one of them. Paco Alcacer from Borussia Dortmund. You've got Danny Parejo, who was Valencia's best player for almost a decade. They've also got a lot of youth. They've got Pau Torres, who is one of the standout defenders in Europe at the moment, and he's 21, 22. You've got Takifusa Kubo, who is 19.
Mm.
He's on loan from Real Madrid. He's currently valued at 25 million pounds. He's 19. So he looks like he's going to shape up to be a real player. But yeah, I mean, they've just very quietly put together a very good squad, and they're sitting second in the table. So they've come in at number 9. In at number 8, I've got Napoli. I previously had them unranked. They kept knocking at the door of my rankings, and then for whatever reason would lose or draw, and they just wouldn't get in. Their recent results are a 1-0 win versus Bologna, 2-1 win versus Rijeka, I believe is how you pronounce that. 2-0 loss versus Sassuolo, and a 1-0 win versus Real Sociedad. We've kind of said everything there is to say about Napoli so far this season. I just want to throw out there for anybody confused as to why I have them in over Sassuolo, who are sitting ahead of them in the table and who beat them 2 match weeks ago. Sassuolo haven't really played anybody yet, and if you know anything about me at this point, it's that I'm not willing to just write off a team for 1 loss or 2 losses. So I've got Napoli in at number 8. And in at number 7, I'm finally on the Ajax hype train.
Yes, I knew
I,
it. I knew it was just a matter of time. Welcome, welcome aboard.
I'm really loving it here. I'm really loving it here. Um,
Yeah.
they previously were unranked for me. Their recent results are a 3-0 win versus Utrecht, a 2-1 win versus Midtjylland, 5-2 win over Fortuna Sittard, and a 2-2 draw with Atalanta. Um, I mean, I've finally seen the light. They've got to be in the rankings. They have a plus 27 goal difference in only 8 league games. The attacking trio of Dusan Tadic, Lassina Traore, and Antony have 14 goals between them, and they're basically unstoppable in the Eredivisie. And Ajax is just one of those clubs, if not the model club, that you have to admire their ability to, sell off their star players and replace them pretty effortlessly without having to buy big name players. So yeah, I've got Ajax in at number 7. And then in at number 6, I've got AC Milan. I previously had them ranked at number 3. They hit a bit of a rough patch over the last few match weeks. They had a 2-2 draw against Hellas Verona, 3-0 loss in the Europa League to Lille, 2-1 win versus Udinese, and a 3-0 win versus Sparta Prague. The only reason 2 rough results didn't kick them out of the rankings for me is because that loss to Lille was their first loss in a game in any competition since February. That's excluding losing on penalties to Juve, which I just won't count because they didn't lose in regulation. But that's a pretty incredible stat. And the draw against Verona could have very easily have been a win. Zlatan had a couple of big chances that he put one on the bar and one he missed a penalty as well that he almost kicked out of San Siro. So
Yeah, he did it all on his own, didn't he? He
yeah,
he he refused to let them lose that game. It was incredible. I think he hit the post, then he missed a penalty, then he missed a couple of really good chances, and then kind of got his own rebound to score the goal. Like it was crazy watching the highlights for that game that it was only Zlatan who was he literally the phrase "take the game by the scruff of the neck" applies perfectly to Zlatan in that game. It was really
yeah,
impressive to watch.
yeah, absolutely. And like I said, that very easily could have been a win. And if it had been a win, they probably would have been 1 or 2 spots higher. But I've got AC Milan in at number 6. How you feel about that, Charlie? Any beef with my 10 through 6?
I think the one that stands out the most is Chelsea, to be honest. I kind of understand why you got them in there because they've had a few decent wins, but yeah, I think there's other clubs. I don't want to give too many spoilers away because I'm going to mention maybe one or two. Yeah, one or two, probably two English clubs. I'm going to give a little mention later on that I think are in better form than Chelsea. But I do kind of see what you're saying though. They're a really exciting team, and if I was a Chelsea fan at the start of this season, I'd be really excited because the transfer window that they had was incredible. And it's definitely interesting as a neutral to watch all these new signings come together. But I am not fully convinced by them yet. They're on a good run of form, like you said, but I'm not sure they'll be up there fighting for the title this season.
For me, it's just basically the fact that at the moment there are not 10 clubs in Europe that are consistent enough to, my if you look at my 7 through 10 last week and my 7 through 10 this week, it's like anybody can just bounce out any week because the results have been so helter skelter all around Europe. So I just looked at Chelsea's, last 3 or 4 games, and their last 4 games, they had a goal differential of 11-1. They didn't really play anybody, but you can only beat who's put in front of you, and that's what they've continued to do. So I just kind of get the feeling that the new signings, Hakim Ziyech, Timo Werner, these guys are starting to gel a little bit. I'm going to speak about Ziyech in another news segment later on, actually.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, a little hint there.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's starting to gel a little bit, and Thiago Silva is finally bringing out some of that PSG form. And if they can lock things up defensively and turn some of the draws and losses they've had this season into wins in the future, then they're really, really dangerous teams. Like I said, my 10th spot has been kind of a hopeful spot for a team that's just on the cusp of what I think is a winning run. So
Yeah. To be
we'll
fair, they're
see.
on a roll. I think I've kind of talked myself around a little bit. I was trying to look for a fight with you, but you've picked a decent team to be on a roll. Like they started the season pretty badly, pretty inconsistently, but they were waiting for Chilwell and Thiago Silva to come into the team and really
And
shore up that defense.
Ziyech as well.
And
So
Ziyech, obviously. To be fair, I didn't expect Ziyech to have the kind of impact that he's had so far. I'm not going to take all your points that I'm sure you're going to go into later on, but yeah, Chilwell in particular, I'm a massive fan of, and Thiago Silva after a horrible first game is kind of shoring up that defense now as well. So Chelsea could be on a roll, but for me at this moment in time, I've got three other English teams in and around my top 10 that I'd kind of rather give a mention to. So, with that being said, I'm going to dive into my 10 through 6, if that's all right with you.
mm-hmm.
Right. So, all the way down in the depths of number 10, we've got our favourites, RB Leipzig, who, to be quite honest, they've had a pretty shocking couple of weeks. In fact, that's a bit unfair because it's been a bit of a roller coaster, but they had their first loss in the league. That was a 1-0 loss away at Mönchengladbach, which is nothing to be too ashamed of. And they followed that up in the league with a 3-0 home win to Freiburg. But it's very difficult to look past the fact they went to Old Trafford and lost 5-0. And I was kind of taken aback by that result. I was telling all my United fan mates that RB Leipzig are a serious team. I was kind of bigging myself up like, guys, I do a European football show. I know what I'm talking about. And then they got out. To be fair, it was a weird game because Leipzig didn't get played off the park for the whole game, but they just crumbled in the last few minutes. And anyway, they followed that up with a win against PSG, which is the only reason they're still in my top 10. You know, we love them. We're big fans of them. But it's not been a great 2 weeks for them. So they sit at number 10. Number 9, kind of similar to you, really. I've got Napoli down towards the bottom end of my rankings. And that is mainly because of that 2-0 loss to Sassuolo, which knocks them off. I don't know exactly where they are in Serie A. I probably should know. Hang on. I do know. Napoli, where are you? They're third at the moment. They're third, but they came down from second. So I had to knock them down a little bit in my rankings, but they're still looking very threatening. Hirving, Lozano, Politano, Mertens, and Insigne all around that front four. Very fluid, very impressive. And the fact they beat Sociedad in the Europa League is very impressive as well, because me and Adam are both big fans of Sociedad. So that's a great win for Napoli. They sit at number 9. Number 8, similar to Adam again, AC Milan have taken a bit of a hit in the last couple of weeks. And it's not because of Zlatan. He's still in great form. He's up to 8 goals for the season now. They had a 2-1 win away at Udinese and followed it up with a 2-2 draw against Verona, which Adam's already talked about. But to be fair, the main reason they've dropped down so far in my rankings is that 3-0 loss against Lille. Like you said, it was their first defeat in any game since February, which, to be fair, unbelievable start. I don't know where you pulled that one out from, but I really enjoyed that one. But yeah, that 3-0 loss, I think it was at home to Lille, who aren't in this top 10. That's a pretty devastating scoreline, and that's something you kind of can't look past. But they're still plugging away near the top of Serie A, so I think they might be top, actually. Sorry, I'm shocking with my positions this week. They're top of Serie A, so you've got to keep them in and around the top 10, so they sit 8th. Number 7, I've got, wait for it, massive curveball here, I've got Leicester City. This is a flashback to the Mahrez, Kante, Vardy era. I bet no one thought they'd be around this top 10 ever again, but here we are. Jamie Vardy, you're thinking it's the form of his life, but he is actually just this good now. I think he won the Golden Boot in the Premier League last season. He's got 9 goals in all competitions this season already. 3 league wins in a row. The latest 2 were a 4-1 win at Leeds away, which is a great win, and a 1-0 win at home to Wolves, which is also impressive. And they sprinkled that with 2 wins against Braga and AEK Athens in the Europa League. They're doing really well. They're top of the Premier League after 8 games. 6 wins from 8, and Brendan Rodgers has done an absolutely fantastic job with that side. And I want to give a special mention to 19-year-old centre-back Wesley Fofana. And if you've not watched him, for goodness sake, watch him. He's 19. He's absolutely fantastic. He's one of the best ball-playing centre-backs I've seen of any age, let alone a teenager. So Leicester City are there deservedly in number 7. And finally, for this section, I've got Atletico Madrid at number 6. That is Diego Simeone's men, 4 wins in a row in the league at least, with a win at Salzburg in the Champions League and a draw with Lokomotiv Moscow. 2 most recent games, there was a 3-1 win away at Osasuna and then a 4-0 hammering of Cadiz at home. Joao Felix has been in unbelievable form. And yeah, they're smashing it. They're in 3rd place. They've got 2 games in hand on most teams. So this could very well be the season they go for a title charge. So Atletico definitely one to keep your eye on this season. Dark horses for sure. Adam?
I love the Leicester. What would you have them 7th? I think it was.
Yeah.
I said this on the last episode that the way I do my rankings throughout the match weekend is I set it up basically at the beginning of the match weekend, and I put an asterisk next to games that haven't been played yet. And that asterisk is, if they win, this is where they will be. And at the beginning of the weekend, I actually had Leicester in at number 10. And they sat there for about 3 days until finally I decided I felt like Chelsea were on a bit more of an upward trajectory. But I did have Leicester just right there at the door of number 10. But, perhaps a couple more wins.
They're on an upward trajectory. Don't get it mistaken. 3 league wins in a row, 2 wins in a row in the Europa League, and they're not beating bad teams either. Leeds away and Wolves at home they're fairly challenging games in the Premier League. So, and I just think Vardy is the obvious topic when you talk about Leicester, because his game's so much about pace, and he's 33, I think. Yeah. And just the pace is somehow just not going. I'm going to, someone needs to drug test this man, because how is he still running that fast at 33 years old? I don't get it.
Yeah. No, it's unbelievable. I think Brendan Rodgers is was he Irish or Scottish? I can't remember now.
He is Northern Irish.
He's the Irish Mourinho. So I think he's maybe lined up for a big job in England in the future if he keeps this up. So, all right, I'm going to get into my 5 through 1, into the juicy stuff. Coming in at number 5, I've got Borussia Dortmund. I previously had them ranked at number 10. The recent results were a 3-2 hard-fought loss to Bayern Munich. a 3-0 win versus Bruges, a 2-0 win versus Arminia Bielefeld, and a 2-0 win versus Zenit. That game against Bayern could have very easily gone another way. They had a lot of the chances. I think they had not that I'm someone who loves XG statistics, but they did have a 2 expected goals and Bayern only had 1.1. So
Yeah.
Dortmund had the bulk of the chances in that game. I think we're going
Haaland
to.
didn't have his shooting boots on. He didn't have his shooting boots on, did he? He
If
was
he
so good at getting in the right positions. Like, I was unbelievably impressed with. It's like he did it with ease. Just ghosted behind Bayern's back line. Anytime he wanted to make a run, it's impossible to defend. Absolutely impossible. And he got behind numerous times, but as soon as you think he's going to fire it into the far corner, he just fluffed his lines too many times in that game, and it cost Dortmund big time.
Yeah, and there was the Marco Royce chance that he skied on the volley. I think it was after the 87th minute chance to equalize. So they're going to rue their missed chances. It very easily could have been a point or more in that game for Dortmund, but I've got them in at number 5. And at number 4, I went a little easier on our old boys RB Leipzig this time. I've said this before. I'm not willing to just chuck a team that has been on months and months of a roll out of my top 5 for a couple of bad results. Yes, the 5-0
5-0.
loss. I look, I watched all 90 minutes, unfortunately. The 5-0 loss was crushing. And then a 1-0 loss to Mönchengladbach is really nothing to scoff at. But I think the 2-0 win against PSG and a 3-0 win over Freiburg, who are notorious for beating the big boys in Germany, it just kind of revived my hope in RB Leipzig. And I think one more bad result and they're headed straight for number 9 or number 10 or straight out of my rankings. But I think it was just a blip. I have trust in Julian Nagelsmann to turn this around and build off of that win over PSG and just go from there. But their next games after actually leading up to the new year, they're going to play PSG, United, and Bayern all before the New Year's break. So
God.
that's going to define their season for me, or at least define what this team is really about. So I've got RB Leipzig in at number 4. Number 3, I've got Liverpool. I previously had them ranked at number 5. We keep talking about it that since Virgil van Dijk went down with a season-ending injury, they haven't really skipped a beat. They've also lost Fabinho, which is another crushing blow. But their recent results were a very hard-fought 1-1 draw against Manchester City, 5-0 thrashing of Atalanta in the Champions League, 2-1 win versus West Ham, and a 2-0 win versus Midtjylland. Looks like they've got a real renewed energy in the signing of Diogo Jota, who had, a hat trick or 4 goals in that 5-0 win against Atalanta.
Yeah, he got a hat trick. And I think he's got 5 goals in his last 4 games. He's absolutely on fire.
He's been an unbelievable signing. And like I said, they really haven't skipped a beat since those 2 big injuries. So for me, Liverpool have got to be in the top 5. And as long as they keep this up, they could potentially remain in the top 3. So Liverpool in at number 3. Number 2, I've got Real Sociedad, who are sitting at number 4 on the last episode. They just keep on rolling in Spain. Their recent results are a 2-0 win versus Granada. That game has a bit of an asterisk next to it. Granada had actually pleaded with La Liga to postpone the game because of so many positive COVID tests. But according to the agreement that all the clubs had signed at the beginning of the season, they had enough players to play. They had to play. They had a right winger playing at right back. They had a center forward playing in a holding midfield role. It was an absolute joke of a game. But Sociedad just keep on winning. They also had a 1-0 win versus AZ Alkmaar, 4-0 win versus Celta Vigo, and a 1-0 loss to Napoli, which we spoke about again in our video last week. But it's not anything to scoff at. That Napoli team is a really good side. But as long as Sociedad keep winning in the league and they keep at the top of the table, they've got to be in that top 3, 4 for me. So they're in at number 2. And then in at number 1, no surprise, Bayern Munich. They just are unstoppable. Even in a game that they probably should have lost, they pull out the 3-2 win versus Dortmund. They annihilated RB Salzburg 6-2, 2-1 win versus Cologne, and a 2-1 win versus Lokomotiv Moscow. There's not really much you can say that hasn't been said right now. They're the best team in the world, and Dortmund is their toughest opponent in Germany. They won that game, and it just feels like another season where they're just going to brush everybody aside and just coast to a title, which is a bit boring for German football fans, but it's fun to watch as a neutral because they're just so good. But yeah, I've got Bayern Munich in at number 1.
Yeah, Bayern really make our job of reporting very easy when they're in this kind of form. It's just like 2 weeks later, Bayern Munich, yep, they won all their games again. No, they're still number 1. It's not really a debate because they've won all their games and they're the best team in Europe. Anyway, I think, am I right in thinking we're going to discuss Dortmund in a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm going to save the chit chat and I'm going to get straight into my 5 through 1, and then we can argue with each other. Does that sound like a good time?
Sounds perfect.
Okay, cool. Right. So, starting back my list at number 5, we've got Ajax. Every neutral's favourite. Adam's aboard the Ajax train now. I'm happy to have him on board. He laughed at me like a couple of weeks ago, but he's on board now. Like he's already said, 2 more thrashings in the Eredivisie. That's not really in doubt. I mean, their last 4 games were 13-0, 5-1, 5-2, and 3-0. They're averaging 4 goals a game in the Eredivisie, which obviously needs to be taken with a pinch of salt because it's not the highest quality league in the world. But what really does add some clout to Ajax is the fact that they beat Midtjylland in the Champions League and they drew to Atalanta, who are no joke. And any people who've watched us from the first episode know that we rate Atalanta pretty highly, even though they've been in bad form in the last few weeks. And they kept it tight in their loss to Liverpool as well. So in their major tests in Europe, they've not disgraced themselves by any means. And I think Ajax are deservedly in there, right in the mix. 5th in Europe, I've got them this fortnight. Number 4, slightly lower down than Adam. I've gone for our old favourites again, Real Sociedad. Last couple of games, 4-1 win away at Celta Vigo, and then a 2-0 home win against Granada. They're still winning that. I mean, since we did our last rankings, they've won 2 more league games and with pretty handsome margins, to be honest. And they won against Alkmaar. So they're going really well. They're still at the top of La Liga. Really impressive side. If you haven't watched our video specifically on Real Sociedad, where we go quite a lot more in depth on them, which might be a team that is not familiar to tons of people as a major team around Europe, then definitely go and watch that, where you can hear more about Sociedad. We're both big fans. I've got them in at number 4, and Adam had them in at number 2, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3, I've gone for Liverpool. We agree on that one. So they're still in the midst of a little transition period, Liverpool, but they're coping fairly well. I think the fact that Klopp keeps changing formations shows that Liverpool are kind of at a crossroads because they can't rely on their traditional 4-3-3 anymore. They need to kind of change it up a bit. And that is where the major test comes in for many teams after they've had a period of dominance. They started with a 4-2-4 against City, where they drew 1-1 at the Etihad at the weekend. That was a ballsy manoeuvre. I think they thought they could race into a 2 or 3-0 lead against us. And to be fair, they almost did. But City weathered the storm and eventually came out with a deserved point, and they potentially should have won the game. But Liverpool, they're still flying in the Premier League, and they absolutely humiliated Atalanta in the Champions League, which is potentially the most telling result of their last 2 weeks. The fact they beat Atalanta 5-0 away. That result also did wonders for everyone's perception of my European football knowledge, because I again, like Leipzig, I told them that Atalanta are a fantastic side. And I might have even told a couple of people to put a fiver on Atalanta to win the game. Alas, it didn't. I don't think they did it, luckily. I don't think they did it. But yeah, it didn't bode well for me. So Liverpool are in at number 3, still one of the best teams in Europe. But they have got something to prove in my eyes. Number 2, to kick off a German top 2, I've got Borussia Dortmund, who lost at the weekend to the best team in Europe, and I think that makes them themselves the second best team in Europe. It was a valiant effort. Like I said, they could have won the game. Haaland, again, I was so impressed with him. I've said it before, he's my favourite player in Europe at the moment. And it was really excited to watch him for a full 90 minutes, which I don't always get the chance to do. Got himself in great positions. I just wish he could have finished them off, but it's just like every time he takes the field, he looks like he's going to score. 2 wins out of 2 in the Champions League and an away win at Armania Bielefeld, apart from their 3-2 loss to Bayern. I think Dortmund are deservedly in there at number 2, and regardless of which team I was in Europe, I would be pretty terrified to face Dortmund at the moment. And number 1, like I said, the easiest reporting job in the world. It's Bayern Munich. They keep winning. Robert Lewandowski is a joke. As that one commentator said, how can you be that good? Do you remember which one I'm talking about?
No.
How do you know? Oh, mate,
No.
it's the one where he scored 5 goals in 9 minutes in that Bundesliga game.
Oh, right.
And there was this English commentator who just screamed, how can you be that good? Anyway, those who know. He's up to 13 goals for the season, which is just obscene. Muller is the perfect servant for Lewandowski, 4 goals, 6 assists already. And Leroy Sané, I'll say it with a tear rolling down my cheek, has also hit the ground running, 4 goals, 2 assists. Bayern are flying, and it's no surprise that they are top of my list as well as yours this week.
Decent. Yeah, I mean, we've got some good stuff to discuss. We've got a lot of, I think we tend to have the top 4 is normally pretty similar, with a couple of exceptions. But why don't we get straight into a Dortmund chat? Because I've got them in at number 5, you got them in at number 2. Yeah. I guess I'll start with why I have them a bit lower ranked than you do. My biggest issue with Dortmund is just the lack of showing up against teams that they should be beating. And this is a Dortmund problem of a long time now. Last season, they lost games to Paderborn, or I'm sorry, they drew with Paderborn and Bremen, and they lost to Mainz. Paderborn and Bremen were both teams that finished in the bottom 3, and that's games they have to be winning. When you're in a league like the Bundesliga and you have a team like Bayern, I would compare it, to La Liga. If you're not Barcelona or Real Madrid, you have to be beating everybody that you should beat. These little, these smaller teams that nick a draw against you or even nick a win against you, it's really just season ending for you because Bayern are going to run away with the title. And that's my issue with Dortmund is, they're a very young team. I think that leads into it a little bit of why they may not have the motivation against some of these smaller teams. But you see a lot of individual mistakes in those games. And that's really my biggest issue. I think if Dortmund beat the teams that they should be beating, they would be up there with Bayern every single season. But it just kind of year in, year out proves to be the case with them that they tend to get up for the big games and they don't for the smaller games. So that's really why I've got them in at number 5. If they go on and win 10 straight, then for me, they've got to be considered a top 2 or 3 team in Europe, but I'm just not there with them yet.
I think we've got to give them a chance this season because they've not lost anything stupid in the last few weeks. They've pretty much beat everything put in front of them recently, with the exception of Bayern. But I think the reason I've got them so high up is when you have a game like that, Dortmund, one of the best teams in Europe, against the best team in Europe, that is when you can really learn what a side has got. And like you said, with the XG, which is nerdy to bring up, but with the XG, Dortmund should have won that game. They should have won that game. But unfortunately, Haaland couldn't put his chances away, which is a real shame for Dortmund. But essentially, the result is what people are going to look back on paper. And basically, the main takeaway from the game is you can't afford Bayern a sniff because they get half a chance and they'll put it in the back of the net. Like Lewandowski's header was really difficult. And somehow, I mean, it's not somehow because we know what kind of form he's in at the moment, but that just ends up in the bottom corner. You just can't afford to give Bayern a sniff. So I think the fact that they created so much against Bayern and that they potentially should have won the game really showed me that they have got a lot about them. They can pose any team in Europe massive problems. And I would certainly be terrified to come up against them this season in the Champions League. I'm praying City avoid them.
Yeah, I mean, there are things that I see in this Dortmund team that are slightly different from Dortmund teams of the past. I think typically in the game against Bayern, they would tend to get run off the park. You know, Dortmund have always been the quote unquote second best team in Germany, but a lot of times you get the sense that it's the best of the rest team and not somebody that's directly competing with Bayern, because Bayern typically run away with it. But you saw in this game that they keyed in on what Bayern's weaknesses were, and that weakness is their high line, and you can get in behind that high line. And like you said, if Haaland could take his chances, that game could have been like 5-1 in the first half. It was that wide open for Dortmund. So I am feeling a bit more confident about Lucien Favre than I have in years past. I think it was not necessarily a tactical masterclass, but he set out with the right setup, with the right ideas in that Bayern game. But like I said, you know, I love this Bayern team. I love the youth. I love the whole identity of the club, that you take these younger talents from Germany, or from around the world, sorry, and you give them a chance to play in front of 80,000 people and probably the best atmosphere in Europe. And, you know, you look at a guy like Jude Bellingham, was used as a tactical sub in Der Klassiker. You know, this is a 17-year-old kid from Birmingham, and he comes on, and they basically gave him the keys to the midfield for about 25 minutes. So I love.
He got his first England call up today, first senior England call up, and if he plays against Ireland, he will be the third youngest to ever play for us. Behind, well, you have a guess. Have a guess who will be behind. I'm putting you on the spot here.
Right, third youngest. I'm gonna say Wayne Rooney is one.
Yeah, that's one. The other one's a bit more difficult.
Can you give me an era?
I think it's around 2006. It's very fast. He's a very fast boy. Very quick indeed.
I'm blanking.
Theo Walcott. Theo Walcott is the other youngest. And I think he scored a hat trick not long after his debut, Theo Walcott. But anyway, I'm straying way off topic here. Yeah, like you said,
Bellingham, I like a bit of trivia. So
yeah, Bellingham giving the keys to the midfield, and at 17, he's got his first England call up this week. So yeah, like you say, Dortmund using the youth is a really, really good thing to see.
Yeah. I mean, to wrap it up, like I said, if this team can get up for those games against, you know, a Freiburg, Mainz, Werder Bremen, and they start getting 3 points in the games they should be getting 3 points in, then they will be there and thereabouts with Bayern, because Bayern does have some weaknesses. For all the might that Bayern is, they do have some weaknesses. So, yeah,
I just say as well?
Yeah.
Can I just say, I don't see Dortmund as overachieving at the moment. If you look through their starting lineup, they have got such a good team. The only thing they can't really compete with Bayern on is the squad depth. But Haaland is in absolutely unbelievable form at the minute up top. Behind him, they've got Sancho, Royce, and 17-year-old Giovanni Reina, who looks a really tidy player. And then behind them, you've got Witsel and Delaney, two top-class, experienced, industrious, kind of holding midfielders. And then you've got a reasonable back line as well. Hummels, Akanji, Meunier, Guerrero, and Berkey in goal. So their starting 11 is bordering on complete, with maybe the exception of the defence. But Bayern aren't exactly... The defence is Bayern's weak point as well. So they can honestly compete with Bayern. 11 versus 11, they can compete with them. They haven't quite got the squad depth to do it, but Dortmund are a very, very serious team that aren't overachieving. They've got a really good squad. And I think as time goes on, if they can keep hold of some of these star youngsters, then they're going to go places and really give Bayern a good challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, only time will tell with Dortmund. They've got not too bad of a run of games coming up. So if they can keep this winning streak, well, they've lost one now, but if they can win their next 3 or 4, that'll put them in pole position, I think, to stay with Bayern in a sustained title race. And keep all of us interested in the Bundesliga later than January,
Yeah,
which would be
that'll make
nice
a
for
change.
yeah. All right, one more club I wanted to have a quick chat about before we just kind of have a little free chat, and we've got actually a new segment later on. Is Atletico Madrid. So I did not have them ranked. I will say it was tough for me to not have them ranked. I wanted to have them ranked, but I had some issues with them, which I'll get into. But I believe you had them in at number 6.
Number 6 for me. Yeah, number 6. Do you want me to
So
explain myself?
yeah. Give me a reasoning of why I should have had them in my rankings.
Um, Let me see. They are the only team undefeated in La Liga. Correct me if I'm wrong. 5 wins, 2 draws.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, when you got a team that started the league season undefeated like that, um, you've got to give them some recognition. And if they'd actually played the same games as the other sides, there's a good chance they would be top of La Liga. And at that point, it's hard to ignore them for a top 10 in Europe if you're top of one of the biggest leagues in Europe. Um, and in terms of individuals, Joao Felix is hitting unbelievable form all of a sudden. Suarez hasn't flopped. He's already got 5 goals this season. And they've still got Simeone, who is vastly experienced. He's always been solid at the back. And the kind of attacking segment of his team that he's putting together is also kind of producing results at the moment. Their last 2 games, 3-1 away at Osasuna and a 4-0 win at home to Cadiz. And they've got some squad depth. They obviously let Thomas Partey go to Arsenal, who, having seen him for just a few weeks in the Premier League, he really does look like a player. And I'm very excited to see what he's got over the course of a season. But they didn't just let it be. They've replaced him. They've got Kondogbia. Through some weird La Liga loophole, they managed to get him from Valencia. And they got the likes of Thomas Lemar, who arrived for absolutely silly money a few years ago. What did he arrive for? Was it like
It was about 65 million euros, I believe.
oh my word. That seems like crazy money for him because he's really not hit the ground running. But at the same time, he's a player that is a full France international. And at one point in his career, he was lighting up Europe to the point where someone was willing to pay £65 million for him.
And that was a bid that won a bidding war between a number of teams. I remember Arsenal being in for him,
Yeah,
Chelsea being in for him.
Arsenal were definitely in for him.
Yeah.
Again, like you were saying with Chelsea, this is me having Atletico in at 6 is kind of me anticipating a charge for the title from Atletico. If there's any season to do it, this is the season. And I have a feeling Simeone might have run his race, and this might be his last crack at La Liga. Or has he already won La Liga?
Yeah, he's won one
Oh,
2015, I believe it was.
see, now I just look silly. But what I mean is, it's Simeone's last hurrah. Obviously, the one that he really wants is the Champions League. But I think they've got a very good opportunity with the league this season.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because the tone of this conversation is you convince me why I'm wrong not to have them ranked. But in reality, the notes I have in front of me here are actually all positive notes on Atleti. I didn't have anything bad to say about them. I
Yeah,
think I just got a little bit scared by that absolute thrashing against Bayern Munich. I
yeah,
understand that Bayern Munich are the best team in Europe, but it was a woeful performance from a Simeone side that don't really have woeful performances. They sometimes do an attack, but that's not necessarily out of a lack of talent. It's just the way they're set up. But the biggest thing for me about this team is I think Simeone has finally shown a bit of a willingness to adapt to the players that he has. And the biggest thing that I've seen so far is with the signing of Luis Suarez. Luis Suarez is a player that has to have players around him and playing off of him and players to link up with. He's not a striker that can be isolated like a Diego Costa or like Alvaro Morata often was when he was there. And
yeah,
if you watch his team play, there's always Joao Felix behind him, and more often than not, they've got Marcus Llorente in, almost a front three, kind of a two sitting off of the main striker in Suarez, and that has really helped. Like you said, Suarez has 5 goals so far already. So I think that's a bit of a willingness from Simeone to adapt to the talent that he has at his disposal, and it's really paying off. They're scoring goals for fun now, and they're actually a very enjoyable team to watch. It used to be very hard to watch Atletico play. Um,
Yeah.
but and like you said, the Diego Simeone defense is still there. So I may not have them ranked, but they are a side that has been knocking at the door of my rankings basically all year. And if they keep this up, they'll definitely be in my top 10 and maybe better than that in our next rankings. But like I said, I don't really have many negative things to say. I think I was just a bit flustered by that 4-0 loss to Bayern.
Yeah, no, it's understandable, but a 4-0 thrashing to Bayern can happen to anyone really when Bayern are really in the mood. And obviously, the likes of Leipzig losing 5-0 at Old Trafford, where United have been absolutely shocking this season, just shows that it's hard to predict, especially this season. Results and form is hard to interpret. But coming back to Atletico, I think it's good as a neutral. I'm really happy to see Joao Felix finally hitting the kind of form that his price tag suggested. I think he came in for around 107 million, is a figure that is just somewhere up there. Either way, it was over 100 million pounds, which is crazy, crazy money.
It was,
But
I think in the end, it was after bonuses and stuff, it was 120 million euros, and it's their record signing.
yeah, crazy, crazy money. But when he was with Benfica, he kind of deserved that kind of price tag because he was really fantastic. He doesn't play as an out and out striker, but he's just got a complete eye for goal. He's a great finisher. And when you lose someone like Griezmann, who became something of a club legend at Madrid, you would have said that in all of world football, Joao Felix was one of the most similar players to Griezmann that you could have brought in. And he didn't have the best season last season, but right now he's absolutely flying. He's
Yeah,
got six goals in his last 4 games, just as a headline, and he's really good as a neutral to see him hitting the heights again.
yeah. I mean, he's got, like you said, he's got 6 goals in his last four. In all this season, he's got 9 goals and 3 assists. For the entirety of last season, he had 7 goals and 3 assists. So he's already eclipsed his goal tally of last season. I
Yeah,
believe he's played less than 10 games so far this season. So he's on pace to put up some amazing numbers. And I think we're looking at maybe a future Ballon d'Or winner here. And I can't remember what game it was. It was a Champions League game, and a ball was played over the top to him, and he had a bicycle attempt that went off the
yeah,
crossbar. But it was still, even though it didn't go in, it was one of the prettiest moments I've seen in football in a long time. So
yeah.
he's
That was against Salzburg, which Atletico won the game 3-2. And Joao Felix actually got 2 goals in that game. And I think, I might be wrong here, but I think he missed a penalty as well. Or
mhm.
I might have just made that up. But he scored 2 and could have easily had 4. And yeah, if that bicycle kick went in, then all of Europe would have been sitting up and taking notice because that definitely would have done the rounds on Twitter. And everyone would know that Joao Felix is a serious guy who's, finally turning up to play some proper football again.
Yeah, I think we say this line often on this show, mostly because we kind of talk about a lot of obscure teams or maybe obscure players. But this is a guy that if you have not watched him play, sit down and watch 90 minutes of him playing, and it's quite a lot of fun. So, all right, I think that wraps up our Atletico talk, and I think we've got a new segment that was actually Charlie's idea. So I'll let him take us through this new segment.
We definitely do have a new segment. And, we talk about teams and we do go over a few key individuals, but I think it might be beneficial for you guys, the listeners, the watchers, to hear us talk about which individuals have been lighting up Europe in the past couple of weeks. So this new segment, I don't know, have we got a catchy name for it? Have we got a catchy name for it at this point? It's just something like our our basically we
Something
haven't got a
like
catchy name for it yet.
player of the week, even though there's 2 weeks in between our episodes. So player of the
Yeah.
weeks, something like that.
Look, we'll start off here. We'll start off here. Outstanding player of the last 2 weeks. We've got room to improve. We'll figure out something more catchy. But that is essentially what we're going to be going over. And for me, I'm going to kick it off. Joao Felix very nearly made it for me. Like I said, 6 goals in 4 games, and he's got a brace that's 2 goals in 3 of his last 4 games, which is pretty incredible, really. But I'm going to go with a small Portuguese maestro that we've already mentioned, and that is Diogo Jota, because for the sheer reason that he came to Liverpool for just over £40 million at the end of the summer window. And I was thinking, what on earth are you doing, Liverpool? This is a guy who was pretty good for Wolves, but not setting the world on fire. And I knew that the chances are he's going to be sat on the bench behind Mane, Salah, Firmino, and you've just paid 40 million for a rotation player. However, what we did not foresee was Jota scoring for fun as soon as he got in the team. He's got 5 goals in his last 4 games, including a hat-trick against Atalanta. And the saliency, big word, the saliency of this run of form is that it's come at a time where Firmino is really struggling to find form of his own. So for the first time in a long time, Jota has been the player to do the inconceivable, which is he's basically saying to Jurgen Klopp, you can't leave me out. You need to change this front three. This can't go on anymore. And Bobby Firmino, who I'm a huge fan of, I thought, in the last 2-3 years, his link-up play is phenomenal. His ability is unbelievable. But the goals have completely dried up for him. And this season, even his link-up play is going. So Jota's come in, his finishing is fantastic, and he's basically laying claim to that striker spot. And I think that in itself is an unbelievably impressive achievement to do so early on in your Liverpool career.
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely not the signing that I think we all expected to be their big signing. I think when you look at the 2 big signings they made in Thiago and Jota, this was definitely seemed like Thiago's kind of title to lose as the biggest signing in Europe. But so far, he's been probably the best signing in English football, I'd maybe say.
At this point, yeah.
Even though he did most of his damage in a Champions League game, but yeah, like you said, to come in and kind of break up that front 3 that has been just so solid for 3 or 4 seasons now of Salah, Firmino, and Mane, it's a pretty hard thing to do. And this isn't a big name player. They didn't sign some big flashy superstar. I think everyone kind of laughed at the price tag when the transfer went through, but he's obviously proving to be worth every cent at the moment. So yeah.
Klopp's got a really good eye for attackers, because when he bought in Mane for 34 million a few years ago, Mane wasn't scoring tons of goals. I was a little bit skeptical at the time of Mane, but I mean, he's turned into what some people are talking about as a Ballon d'Or contender, like a top 5 player in the world, and it's hard to argue with him. And Klopp obviously saw that in him. And he seems to have done the same in Jota. If you're paying 40 million, you've got to be pretty confident that they can go on to do great things. And it seems that Jota's not been brought in to just fill the space on the bench and step in when needed. It's more like players like Shaqiri, Minamino, Origi, they are backups. Ever since they've been brought in, they've been backups. They've never laid claim to a starting spot in the Liverpool front 3. But Jota, maybe Klopp knew this all along. Firmino's his form's kind of been going like that steadily, and perhaps Klopp anticipated that and actually knew that Jota could step into that front 3 in a starting role.
Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable. You're right. He does have a great eye for attackers, and Jota's actually a player I've always really liked. I loved watching him play at Wolves, but unfortunately, he plays in the color red now, which is not my favorite. So, to my player of the last 2 weeks, I've got Hakim Ziyech of Chelsea. This is a player I was really high on when he made the move from Ajax to Chelsea. I watched him play a lot when he was at Ajax, especially that season they made a Champions League semifinal run. And, he came over with a hefty price tag, £40 million. But he came in, he was injured at the start of the season, and he's now played 5 or 6 games in a row. And honestly, he's been immense for Chelsea, and all of the attack has run through him. He's only played 190 minutes of Premier League time now, and he's got a goal and 3 assists. I've already seen a poll go out on Twitter that was who has the best left foot in the Premier League, James or Ziyech. So, the guy is catching attention around English football right now. And it truly was a worthy poll, because that left foot is a thing of beauty. He played a ball into the far post for that Chilwell goal in the game at the weekend, where he literally dropped the ball into like this little 1-inch gap where Chilwell could kind of knee the ball into the net. And the left foot is sweet. It reminds me a lot of David Silva's left foot, where he just could pick out from any direction, any distance. He just pings the ball.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's just lovely to play. And I think it's no secret and it's no coincidence that Ziyech returning to the team and being fit has really spurred Chelsea on into winning 4 or 5 straight games. So I've got Hakim Ziyech as my player of the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird that Ziyech has been the one out of their load of summer signings which seems to have made the biggest impact so far, because he was the one which I would have put towards the bottom of the list, to be honest. But like you say, since he's come in, his technical ability is really on show, and his left foot is absolutely fantastic. And the people that have watched him so far are pretty convinced that this is going to be the guy that is going to step up to the kind of Hazard level that they've not had since he left, which is huge boots to fill for Ziyech. But yeah, he's been really, really impressive in just 190 minutes of football so far. So yeah, I'm excited to see what Ziyech has got in the next few games as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so since metrics tell us, Adam and Charlie, you cannot go over 1 hour length video or your audience will absolutely fall asleep on their keyboard, we're going to wrap it up there. We do have an international break, so we like to have 2 match weekends before our next rankings. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to wait an extra week and let another round of matches get played before our next rankings episode. But we will have plenty of content to come out in the next 2 weeks, some individual episodes on individual clubs and perhaps even some guests talking about their clubs that they happen to be experts on. And we'll see. It's we're going to kind of wing it, but we've definitely got a lot of fun stuff planned.
Yeah, we've got a blank canvas to work with, and that's where we're dangerously creative. So
Yeah,
there's some good stuff coming in the international break.
absolutely. All right. So before we wrap up, I'll just give my normal spiel. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, hit the subscribe button down below. Hit the notification bell to be notified when we release another video. And if you or anyone you know prefers the audio version of our show, you can search us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, the Rank and Report Football Show, and we will be the first search result. Give us a follow, give us a subscription, tell your mom, tell your dad. When you go home, any Americans listening, when you go home for Thanksgiving, make sure you give everybody the link to the show. Everybody's got to hit the subscribe button. Yeah.
If you've made it this far, if you've made it to this point in the video, for goodness sake, just subscribe. We're obviously doing something right. We've made it to the 59th minute. We're worth it.
We're either very handsome or very smart, but either way, it's worth sticking around for an hour of us just rambling. So, but yeah, like I said, we're only a couple away from 100 subscribers, so we appreciate everybody that has subscribed already. Yeah, but I believe that's it. Charlie, any more words for the people?
No, just like I said, blank canvas. Another interesting video will be on its way, so I'll see you for another video soon, mate.
All right, see ya.